Today we are going to talk about Joseph Joestar and how he went from defeating the strongest creatures to almost getting killed by an escalator and getting into this situation.
Abdul, hurry up and get off me before this gets any worse! I'm trying as hard as I can!
Joseph Joestar was born in 1920. While Joseph Joestar was only a few months old, his father George Joestar comes to know that the Air Force commander was a smart-ass zombie. When he comes to know this truth, he does what every single wannabe hero does. He reaches the zombie when literally no one was around them and got killed. As soon as his wife Elizabeth receives this news, she immediately goes to the zombie and kills him. But a guy witnessed her killing the commander, and then she runs away as now everybody thought that she was a murderer. Joseph's childhood wasn't really that interesting and he wasn't good at studies either, but still passed all thanks to Speedwagon. From childhood, he only cared about two people, one Arena Pendleton and another Speedwagon because of Arena Pendleton. Nothing much happened in his childhood apart from fights in planes and some more fights. Then at the age of 18, he's shown in New York City where he was buying Coca-Cola, the one and only beverage that almost every anime character drinks.
Alright, by your accent I'd say you're in from England.
Yeah, he sure does have a British accent. I mean, even if I was deaf, I could tell that Joseph had a British accent, and I don't know why he looked like a 14-year-old kid. The writer should have pumped those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers. He should have been at least 8 feet tall and should have weighed 400 kilos at the age of 18. Anyways, when Joseph was buying Coca-Cola, a kid named Smokey robs Joseph and runs away. And Joseph was like, I don't give a fuck about money. Uncle Speedwagon has my back. But Smokey gets caught by this pig. So Joseph just beats this pig and his friend and becomes a good friend to Smokey. Typical anime friendship. Later he comes to know that Uncle Speedwagon has been murdered. It was a shock to Jojo, so he starts looking at bra advertisements in the evening and wonders if girls could make their lemons bigger. While he was recovering from the news of Speedwagon's death, vampire Strezzo comes into the picture and was fully prepared to kill Joseph. So Joseph just casually takes out a Tommy gun out of thin air and shoots his vampire grandfather. Typical grandfather-grandson fight. But of course, grandfather doesn't die because grandfathers in anime are badass. During this fight, Strezzo fires a blast through his eyes. But surprise, surprise, it was mirror all this while that Strezzo was attacking. So Strezzo, being a vampire, couldn't hear or smell Jojo or feel his presence. Pretty realistic. Then Strezzo says that he has perfected the 4,000 years old art of Harmon.
I have inherited 4,000 years worth of history and research in the art of Harmon.
Then Joseph blasts Strezzo into tiny pieces, but Strezzo was still alive, so then Joseph had to use his final technique. But finally he manages to kill Strezzo by using Javarudo. Here is how he does it. Now I will finally kill you. Laser beam! Unfortunately for you Strezzo, I can use Javarudo. Now let's deflect the laser. How did you do it? I pity you, Strezzo, but you are now a side character for the show and a punching bag for me. Plot armor punch! The next day, he goes to Mexico to reveal the Pillar Man mystery and find out if Speedwagon was actually dead. After reaching Mexico, he becomes Tequila Joseph and lures guards with his sexy outfit. But I don't know how these side characters were able to find out that Joseph was a man. I mean, look at him and hear his voice. That's the most feminine voice I have ever heard. Anyways, he beats these guards and undresses them both to wear clothes of only one. I won't judge. Different people have different fetishes. Then he enters the lab and fights San Viento, the Pillar Man. This fight was really intense. Words alone can't describe the intensity of this fight, so here are some clips. Finally, he turns San Viento into a stone and comes back to New York with Speedwagon. Later, Joseph moves to Italy to find out more about the other Pillar Men. In Rome, he meets Caesar Zappli, who does virgin things like complimenting a woman and sitting on a chair like this. I mean, I get it that you have a strong ass, but you don't need to fart to prove that. Later, Joseph along with Speedwagon, Caesar and a side character go to the area where Pillar Men were found. While they were coming to the location, a Pillar Man Vamu somehow awakes and covers all the UV lights with the soldier's blood. Then he turns the rest of the soldiers into paper. After this, he awakens the other 2 Pillar Men as well. Then Joseph arrives at the location and meets those 3 Pillar Men. Those Pillar Men didn't give a fuck about Joseph and they just kept walking. And of course, the first person to die was this side character. Caesar becomes angry at his friend's death and starts posing. Pretty realistic. Then the episode ends for good. Otherwise, I couldn't emotionally handle 2 deaths in a single episode. Then Joseph fights Vamu, but let's just say Vamu almost kills Joseph. But Joseph uses the famous technique Nigarundayo and traps Vamu into thinking that Joseph isn't prepared to fight yet. So Vamu gives him 33 days to prepare for the fight and fucks him up by putting a poison ring around his heart, which would start to dissolve in 33 days, thus killing Joseph. If this was not enough, AC/DC also fucks him up by putting his ring around Joseph's windpipe and asks Cars if he wanted to join the gangbang as well. But Cars was like, nah, I ain't gay. Then they leave and Joseph finally realizes that he has been bleeding for more than 5 minutes but still was in perfect condition because of unlimited blood supply. So he decides to be unconscious so that it can look more realistic. Now Joseph needed training, so he goes to Lisa, a young marvelous looking lady. He trains for only 25 days and becomes an expert. Then on his exam night, he had to fight his teacher Logs, aka Poop side character. But AC/DC had already transferred this teacher to the heaven department and he himself started taking Joseph's test. So it's like you had to face a class teacher first, but now you face Albert Einstein. Here is the fight. I will kill you. Just try it. I knew you would do something, so I already have a counterattack for that. Interesting, but too bad this attack does not affect me. I will break your hand and then you can never use your hormone. Is that so? I knew you would do something like that to my counterattack, so I already have a backup counterattack. You have made progress. Too bad I can do this and this. Too bad, while you were busy throwing your boiling blood at me, I prepared a woolen string trap that is now covering you. I knew you would do something like that. After all, you're Joseph, the master of trickeries. But guess what? I already cut your woolen strings with my trap and now you will die. You're so predictable, AC/DC. Too bad I already had a backup counterattack for my counterattack. Dude, seriously, how many counterattacks do you have? It's simple math. Whatever number of counterattacks you have plus 1. And now you die. How can you beat me? You just trained for 25 days. Doesn't matter. I destroyed hundreds of people at a time who were a lot more powerful than you. Doesn't matter. Dude, you didn't even have any anime backstory bullshit to increase your power. First of all, it's called Art of Anime Backstory. And bro, I didn't want to destroy the universe. I just wanted to destroy the strongest creature in the world. So why would I use the Art of Anime Backstory? Okay, reasonable enough. I guess I will just die then. And in the end, Joseph defeats AC/DC. Then AC/DC uses his final technique where he explodes his body, thus burning and boiling everything nearby. But it absolutely did nothing to Jojo, and my boy Jojo was like, I have plot armor. But AC/DC wasn't completely dead. So the next day he entered the maid's body and sent the Stone of Asia to his boys. Red Stone of Asia is a perfect stone that could make the Pillar Men immune to the sun and turn them into perfect beings. At this time, my boy Joseph was waiting outside for Lisa, who was bathing inside. Joseph was getting bored, so he thought why not do the obvious and peek through the keyhole. And he did it. And also said nice after it. Nice! I repeat, He didn't say nice, he said nice after it, which should tell you the level of happiness he had. Then he realizes that the red stone of Asia was stolen, and then they go after the stone. In the evening they finally reach Switzerland, where they see the red stone of Asia. But surprise, surprise, the Germans captured the stone. Joseph and others were happy that at least the pillar men don't have the stone. At night, Kars comes into the picture and kills all German soldiers inside the room except Major von Stroheim. Because Stroheim was a machine, so Kars couldn't detect him through the wall. Von Stroheim was blown into pieces while fighting Sarmiento, but I guess he was just almost killed. German scientists revived a person and turned him into a robot in 1939. Germans sure had the best science in the world and were way ahead of their time. But of course, Kars cuts Major von Stroheim in half and steals the red stone of Asia. But our superhero Joseph with his big brain captures the stone and jumps into the abyss as Kars pulled him. So Joseph just kicks Kars, catches a popsicle, uses Hamon and creates popsicle rope while they were falling. Pretty realistic. Then they went to Sir Moritz, where Vamu and Kars were staying in a castle. Joseph and others decided to wait for Kars and Vamu's attack, but Caesar was too pissed at Vamu and Kars, so he alone went in to defeat them. Lisa sent this side character to stop Caesar, as they didn't know the Pillarmen's plan, because who knows, there could be Kars doing PP training with Vamu. As always, this side character gets knocked out faster than the writer could script his death. Anyways, Caesar enters the castle and fights Vamu for a lot of time. Obviously, Joseph and Lisa didn't worry a lot, and this Giga Chad was after Caesar as well, so what could go wrong? But then Joseph and Lisa comes to the castle yard and didn't enter the castle, because maybe they didn't see anything through this hole and couldn't hear any sound of the fight, which literally continued for more than 2 minutes after Lisa and Joseph arrived at the yard. The weather is good, but whose arm is that? Maybe we should go inside, as it sounds like something really bad is happening inside. Nah, we are good.
Did you hear that? It sounded like Caesar screaming.
Now I think we should go inside and check. In the end, Caesar dies because he had the disadvantage of being the friend of the protagonist, and on top of that, he was with the Joestars. Then Joseph and Lisa arrive. Perfect timing. Inside the castle, they see dead Caesar's blood, which makes them angry, and then they straight up goes to kill Kars and Vamu. But later they realized they were fucked. So they decided to fight Kars and Vamu at night, and whoever wins will take the red stone of Asia. Later that night, Joseph fights Vamu and defeats Vamu. It was just a typical Joseph fight, where Joseph keeps counterattacking the counterattacks of his enemy until they are defeated. Then Lisa fights Kars, but Kars cheats and defeats Lisa because she was just a woman.
Coach Lisa, you may be extremely skilled, but you are still a woman.
Which is true though, as one automatically turns into a man when one becomes too strong. Seeing Lisa getting cheated makes Joseph angry, and he breaks Kars' blade with just a hand chop. By the way, this blade can easily cut bullets. OG anime technique of family love. After this, Kars falls to the ground and gets pierced by these spikes. Major Stroheim thought that Kars was almost dead now, but surprise, now Kars somehow launches himself even if all of his body parts were still stuck in the spikes, wear masks in mid-air, and finally becomes the invincible Kars. Then Kars goes on to bragging how he is now the strongest immortal creature and possesses an unbelievable amount of power and blah blah blah. Now Joseph knew he was fucked, so he uses the famous technique Nigarundayo, takes Kars to a volcano and pushes him into the lava. But Kars comes out of the earth and returns Joseph's favor by cutting his hand. Kars proceeds to use Hamon energy on Joseph to kill him, but Joseph uses the red stone of Asia to amplify that Hamon energy. The amplified energy makes a volcanic eruption, and then he sends Kars to space with the help of a robotic arm. Then Jojo starts falling down with the rock, and some text appears on the screen saying Joseph Joestar died on 28 February 1939. Just kidding, because when Joseph was falling towards the sea, he just casually lands on the sea. Pretty realistic. The only way to survive death in JoJo's world is to be Joseph Joestar. I guess he might have turned off the fall damage. Not a big deal for a Joseph Joestar. Later he attends his own funeral. Then at the age of 62 he mates with Tomoko. He then used Nigorundayo and ran away from child support. Then at the perfect age of 69 he comes to his daughter Holly to rescue Jotaro to help him get rid of an evil spirit that brings him books, food or whatever he wants and also prevents him from dying. A pretty realistic evil spirit. If that's what an evil spirit does, then I guess I will have one too.
My only daughter has been married to a Japanese man for over 20 years. Her son rarely gets to see his own grandfather! That's why I'll never forgive the Japanese!
I will not forgive the Japanese, says the guy who himself has been speaking Japanese his whole life, even after being an Englishman who had no connection with Japanese and literally mated with a Japanese woman. Anyways, he gets Jotaro out of jail with the help of Avedol, and then Joseph goes to Holy's house. Then Joseph and others come to know that Holy has the evil spirit as well, because Dio, the main villain, is connected to all Joestars and thus matures all of their evil spirits. And the only way to kill Holy was to kill Dio. So Joseph starts one more bizarre adventure with Avedol, Kakyoin and Jotaro. Now they knew they had to go to Egypt. So Joseph starts his adventure, but on his way to Egypt he finds enemies. A lot of enemies. Here are some clips from their journey.
Hey, what's the matter with you, Abdul? I'm trying as hard as I can! I'll be the one to move! Mr. Joestar, please slow down!
Finally, Joseph and others reached Dio, but they had to jump out of Dio's house as they didn't have any plan to kill Dio, and Dio could easily use his stand to kill them. Then they planned to divide to attack Dio from two sides. Soon enough, Joseph finally understands the power of Dio's stand, which was Javarudo over the world, but he really couldn't do shit. He tells Jotaro about it, but it was of no use, and Dio finally takes all the blood from Joseph's body, and then Joseph dies. Then Jotaro, the 17-year-old normal kid, kills Dio, the 121-year-old gay vampire, and then he revives Joseph by just pumping Dio's blood into Joseph's body. Pretty realistic. Anyways, then we see Joseph Joestar after 10 years, and man, he went from holy shit to whole shit. I mean, what can you expect from Dio's blood? Anyways, at the age of 79, he is called to Morio because of some important work. But he never does that important work, and all he does in this season is change the diapers of an invisible baby. And yes, he also met his 15-year-old son for the first time. Now, a lot of you might be thinking that Joseph is so bad. He cheated on his wife. The reason why Joseph cheated was to get a son because he only had a daughter. Guys, it's not cheating if you are producing a Chad kid. It's a kind of social service for the betterment of the humanity. So he made love with a woman and left, because if not, then who would have healed all the people, and especially my man Jotaro? Thus Jolin wouldn't have been born, and female JoJo fans would forever call us gay and call themselves straight. Joseph predicted this future and made love to a healthy woman even though he didn't want to, and everyone is just making my guy feel guilty. The hardest decisions require the strongest wills. Then he takes care of that baby and most probably goes on to make love with more women so that there can be more JoJos and more episodes. Thus a win-win for both the writer and the audience. I have an Instagram and Twitter account as well, guys, so if you liked this content and want to see more content from me, like a sneak peek for the upcoming video, you can follow me on social media. I also have a Discord server where you can chat with other anime fans. That's it for the video, guys. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, you can like the video and subscribe the channel. Also, don't forget to turn on the notifications bell and follow me on social media. The links are in the description below.